Hey guys, and welcome to lesson 6 of running your own freelance design business. This is your office, and in today's lesson we're going to help you learn where and how to set up your office. Now, it's often said that an Englishman's home is his castle and a freelancer's office is theirs. A freelancer has to work from somewhere, and everybody needs somewhere to work. So that's a fact. You can't get around that. There's no way around being able to work in a public area permanently. So you're going to need some sort of location to be able to work. So in this lesson, I'm going to help you decide where you want to work and the equipment that you'll need for your location of work. So first up, the first option is whether you can work from home. Now, for many freelancers, especially if you are part-timing, your home is going to be your office. In fact, it might be the only office that you really ever need. Let's consider some locations though within your house, and we're going to look at specific plus and minus points for each of those locations where you could locate your office. Now, the first one is if you have a spare room in your home, could you use that? Well, it's the most obvious and it's the most productive if you were able to set up a separate room for your office. So if you're fortunate enough to have something like a converted basement or a loft, an attic, those kind of spaces are ideal because they're quiet, they're comfortable, and you can actually shape them, design them, tailor them to be specifically just an office, and that can then be more productive for your workflow and things like that. However, it doesn't have to be below ground. It could be just a spare room in your house, what you might call a junk room. You could tidy that out. Some people even manage to work on things like a veranda, under a porch, so anywhere you can think of that's going to be somewhere you can set aside psychologically as a work area, because that is the real benefits of those areas, that you're able to zone them off in your brain as a specific place that you just work. Now, research is actually being conducted into the working brain, and the results showed that if you have a space that's used for two purposes, so a multi-use room, such as sleeping and working, so your bedroom, or a lounge where you watch TV and relax as well as working, those places actually confuse your brain a little bit, because it means that your brain's thinking, well, hang on a minute, normally I'm sat here relaxing, but actually now I need to work. And it confuses your brain. So it might even cause problems with your life, because if you're working in your bedroom and you're trying to sleep and your brain's like, well, actually a minute, I need to work in this room, and you're thinking, well, I need to sleep now, it just confuses it. So separation is a key important fact. If you can, a room that's away from the kind of hustle and bustle and of all the noises of your house is ideal. Somewhere where you can just go, shut the door and be alone. And also make sure that your family, wherever you're working, know that when you're in that place, you're working. Even though, yes, technically you are at home. Having this kind of separation is perfect for getting your work done. You can shut the door and then forget about the work at the end of the day, and you can just go and relax with your family in the rest of the house, carrying on with your personal life. It also means that everything that you set up, things like papers, your computer, specification sheets, all that kind of stuff, you can leave it out. You don't have to tidy it away, and you know that things won't go missing because it's separate. Nobody's going to interfere. It's all in its own place. But what if you just simply don't have that kind of spare space? Well, let's have a look at using a multi-purpose room or an existing room in your house. If you don't have that room, you're going to need to use a room that's already been used in the home, so a dual purpose room. And whilst it might not be ideal, as we've just discussed, it can work for some people. It does work for some people, because some freelancers actually thrive off the hustle and bustle of being able to work at places like Starbucks. So the same principle applies when you're at home. So choose a neutral location. For example, if you have kind of like a closet under your stairs, in the hallway, on the landing, a dining room, somewhere where you can be concentrated on your work without distractions, that's going to work best. You might like to be with your family whilst you're working, that's entirely up to you, so that could work out too, but do try and avoid noisy, distracting places like the front room or your lounge where the TV is, or busy rooms like your reception hall, because noise can affect your concentration. And it also causes further problems down the line. For example, when you're on a phone call to a client, Skype meetings, and you have children running around in the background, or people knocking on the door, that kind of thing. So you do need to be able to set the zones up when you're actually using them. Now, if you don't have either of those options, or you just don't feel like they're going to suit you, you could look at perhaps building a specially built garden office. You could convert your loft, look at turning your garage into a studio or a design office. So that's going to be perhaps a little bit more expensive, so you're going to need some surplus funds. But it's good to consider perhaps converting a room or having one built for an office. So for example, the basement, the loft, or just an outside space, how could you use those? Well, you can convert these spaces with the help of building professionals into clean, light, dry, modern, airy spaces that are perfect for working. Lofts make a great room, as they're often the full length of the house, so they're going to be nice and big and airy, and they're large enough to fit all your kind of office furniture, and they're also quite quiet and warm because they're away from the house, so that's a kind of good benefit for those. Basements, again, they make a great place because if you are willing to give up the kind of scenic views that a loft might give you, you actually get better sound insulation, so it's ideal if you do need to do any calls with clients. And also they get great heat insulation. They are snug, cosy places to work in the winter, and they're just ideal spaces, nice and quiet, separate from the house, and you do have that kind of differentiation between your house and your office. There are also companies that have set up recently that provide something called a garden office or a garden workroom, and these are very effective because they're completely separate from your house. So in some effects you have a kind of commute every morning, and basically some of them are effectively sheds with insulation, but some are more permanent buildings that are very modern, very cool looking, but they can be upwards of $10,000. So you're going to need to weigh up whether those are going to be worth it, but they are an effective, warm, totally separate place to work with a great view of your garden, and that'll help you hopefully be relaxed whilst you're working and keep you in a focused mindset. So if you can, those are perhaps maybe the ultimate ways to shape your own office space, and whilst they are the most costly, they also provide you with the chance to build an office from scratch to your own specifications and to suit your own workflow. Now, if you don't fancy working from home at all, which is completely fine, there's numerous cons to working at home, you might want to look at an external office. So if you want to be totally separated from the home environment, or you expect to have things like lots of client meetings in-house, or you just want to portray a bit more of a professional image or a business-like image, then an external office space is probably going to be more suited to you. Now, unlike rooms in your home, these are probably going to be a little bit more costly in fact that you have to pay every month to rent one, but you can often find things like budget office spaces. And then again, they have cons because those might be lacking natural light or a window, for example. So it's all about weighing up those kind of plus and cons for your own situation. You're going to need to weigh up whether in the future you want to hire or employ employees. So having an office outside of your home is going to make that easier to do because it means that employees aren't travelling to your house. And again, that goes the same for client meetings. You can have the clients come to your office rather than having to meet in perhaps a neutral location such as Starbucks or similar because you work from home. These spaces, these office spaces, have a much more business-like appearance visually. So if that's what you're used to and that's what you like, then so be it. However, do remember that you are a designer, so shaping your space, your office space, is the perfect way to get your creative juices flowing and to be able to have a little bit of fun and tweak it to your own design style. Another option that has come up recently is co-working. Now, if you want to work in an external office, but perhaps you don't have the budget to be able to do so, then you might think about co-working. If you want to work in a neutral location, and feel this is going to help you to be more productive, but don't fancy the expense of just an entire office to your own, then you might think about co-working, which is essentially companies will convert a large space, perhaps a mill, an old school. They convert these into small separated rooms, or sometimes just put desks into a large room. And then these are often considerably cheaper because all you're renting is a desk and an internet connection. So these then are budget, but very cool places to work, very creative. And also you've got the advantage of being able to work around other freelancers, lots of other creative minds that you can tap into. They also quite often will have communal cafes, kitchens, toilets and meeting places that you might be able to rent. So those offer the best of both worlds because you can work in a separate location, but you've got all the kind of amenities of your home and an office space, and they really do suit like teleworkers, remote workers. And if you're able to do so, if you can select your fellow office mates from complementary freelancing circles, such as someone who's a copywriter or an SEO marketer, that could mean you could then team up and offer your services to your design clients, or you can offer your design services to their clients. So that could be a little bit of a nice tie-in if you're able to do that. Another thing you might want to look at is a service office. Now, when selecting your office space, it might be worth looking at these because they are often large complexes of offices situated in towns and cities in great locations, and again with all the business amenities. You can take things like cafes for granted, but when there's one on the site, it does mean that you have less travelling time to go get your lunch and things like that. They also offer electricity and facilities, cleaning, internet, phone line rental, all in the price. So they might seem expensive, but they actually include everything in one final bill every month. That all goes towards giving you less of a headache, and it also means there's less paperwork at the end of the year for you or your accountant, and it's just less fuss. Everything's in one price in a professional office. Now you need to think about equipment as well. As with a lot of freelancing, equipment brings up a lot of kind of decisions that you're going to need to make that are going to be personal to you. Not every designer uses the same tools as the next one, so you need to work on the computer that you're happiest working on, whether that be a Mac or a PC. You might need to have a graphics tablet permanently set up, whereas other designers may not. You might want to sketch a lot on paper, whereas others are happier wireframing, things like that. So knowing what equipment that you're going to need to use is going to be helpful when you want to start thinking about where you're going to work and how it's going to look. But here are some kind of general basics that will help you when you are setting up your equipment. First off, you need a computer. Now, it goes without saying that in this modern world, you need a computer. Design is nearly 90% carried out on computers now, so you need a good work machine. A lot of the software programs that we're using can be very intensive on computer resources, so make sure that you buy the best machine that you can and as money allows. Somebody once said to me that you get what you pay for, and that's true in all things in life, but especially so with computers. I've chosen to work on Macs purely because I like the workflow for Mac computers. I like the way that they work, the way they look, and how they run. They kind of fit into my workflow as best as possible. So for me as a designer and a content producer, I feel that that suits my workflow, and I have picked Macs. But other people choose Windows, Linux. You need to make sure it's going to be right for you, it's going to suit you for the next few years, and that it isn't going to cause you any productivity problems. Something you want to consider though, working on notebooks is fine if you're just doing some light typing or browsing the internet, but working on a MacBook or a laptop all the time to design isn't going to be very comfortable, especially as working with a trackpad is quite an inefficient way to work. When you're designing, you need to be precise, you need to have ultimate control, so get yourself a mouse and avoid using the trackpad. Consider too getting a proper monitor, because having a proper monitor gives you valuable screen real estate. You can work over two screens. You can have your design up on one screen and a spec sheet on the other, or examples of work that a client likes, and it just offers a really great way of being able to reference information but also design as well at the same time. And it's useful in other things as well, such as invoicing and looking up a project at the same time. Or you could have a previous version of a design next to a current design and be working between those, flying different elements between them. Another thing you're going to need to think about in terms of equipment is communication. A lot of communication will be done nowadays via email, but that's fine and it works most of the time, but not every client is going to have email. So you should definitely still have some sort of phone, whether that be a cell phone, a mobile phone, or just a landline. But also you should look at having access to fax. Even though it's such an old thing, you might run across needing to fax people something. You can use services on the internet now to scan something in and then fax it. But being flexible especially with communication, is going to be key, because you want to make sure that you can send contracts, invoices, receive design changes in any way that suits your client. So just think about that when you're working with your clients and how you're going to communicate with them. Finally, furniture. Now, furniture and decorations are probably going to be the last thing that you think about when you get an office, but they do really help shape your workspace and make it an inviting place to work. So you should definitely think first about investing in an ergonomic chair, because you're going to be sitting a lot and you don't want to get any damage to any part of your body from repetitive stress injuries or anything like that. An ergonomic chair will help you relieve stress from sitting in one position. And also your desk, that should really be at the right height. It should be spacious, and you can never have too much space because you want things like storage. You want to be able to put packages on it and not be cramped and feeling like you're under an avalanche of paperwork. Finally, some decorations. They might help you keep your mind a little bit more occupied and creative, and plants are known to give a healthy feel to a space. But ultimately you can shape your office to your own taste and pretty much put whatever you want in there. So what have we learned in this lesson then? Well, we've looked at the advantages and disadvantages of certain working environments, and we've also considered the equipment that you'll need as a freelancer. Your task for the lesson is to decide which choice of workspace is going to suit you the best, and then research into what's available locally. Next time on Running Your Own Freelance Design Business, we'll be looking at your work schedule, when and how you'll work. Thanks for watching.